Tomorrow's national budget speech is taking place against a backdrop of a country faced with high unemployment, slow economic growth, lack of service delivery, and millions of South Africans depending on social grants. In the 2024 budget, it was estimated that there will be 9.24 million social relief of distress grant beneficiaries in 2024-2025, with a budget estimate for grants standing at 33.7 billion rand. Now, in the undelivered budget last month, National Treasury proposed an increase of value-added tax by 2%, and that takes it from 15 to 70%. This created a deadlock among the members of the Government of National Unity and resulting in the 2025 national budget speech being postponed tomorrow. Let's talk about the implications of this postponement on the economy and, of course, expectations. We've got Professor Andre Roux, economist at Stellenbosch Business School, and Thokozile Madonko, who is a researcher at the Southern Centre for Inequality Studies at Wits University. Great to have both of you, and thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning to all the viewers.
Yes, good morning.
Thank you so much. Prof, let me begin with you. I mean, are you hoping for big changes from tomorrow's national budget? I mean, obviously you've read the undelivered speech and the big sticking point was the VAT. What do you think is going to happen tomorrow?
Yeah, and look, the big sticking point is how to plug a roughly 60 billion rand gap. The minister chose to raise the VAT rate by 2 percentage points, and obviously, as you pointed out, that set the cat amongst the pigeons. So the question still remains how to plug the gap. But I do fear that with this focus over the last few weeks on plugging the gap and the 2% VAT rate, we've lost sight of an actually even more important, bigger picture, and that is the need to grow the economy. I do fear that it's become a matter of almost arithmetic, tinkering around with numbers and trying to balance the books. And as I say, we've lost sight of the bigger picture, the desperate need to create growth and certainly inclusive growth. But notwithstanding that, it still remains we have to plug the gap. And there are various ways of doing that. Simple mathematics makes it easy, but it's not that simple, unfortunately. You could either increase some other form of tax, and or you could cut back on government spending, and or you could borrow more money, and or a combination of all of the above. Problem is, any one of those is either economically and or socioeconomically and or politically not very palatable. So now it becomes a matter of finding which one of those would be the lesser of all the evils, as it were. I think therein lies the problem, there lies the politics.
And that's the biggest problem, it really is. I mean, let me bring Thokozile into the conversation. That, because this one hits very hard. This is it's a hard one, and obviously the 2% was taken off the table, we think, but that's what led to the postponement of the national budget. There are ramblings that we could possibly see 0.5 percentage point increase in the VAT. What do you think? What is your standpoint on that?
So, I mean, in terms of the research, value-added tax is a regressive tax because it doesn't really make a distinction between poor families and rich families. And so it hits everybody, but it doesn't hit everybody equally. So we're interested in inequality. And we talked about the high levels of inequality in this country. And so if we're trying to tackle inequality, we shouldn't be doing something that will exacerbate inequality because poorer households, in particular women, spend more money on foodstuffs out of their income than do wealthy households. So that really was a lazy option. And as the professor has pointed out, there were a number of other options on the table available to National Treasury. But they've been pushing for these VAT increases since 2018. A little bit earlier, it was an IMF direct. The International Monetary Fund has been pushing for South Africa to increase VAT. It's part of an austerity package. So when countries are implementing fiscal consolidation like South Africa, then one of the recommendations is to increase consumption taxes, because it's an indirect tax. So the question really is who bears the burden of funding government services? And as the Prof has rightly said, we've gotten lost in the weeds. The question here is what is the role of the budget? And the budget is a political choice. It starts with political choices and ends with political choices. And those choices determine whether or not there's growth in the economy, whether or not people have jobs, whether or not people can access affordable food. So the budget is a tool in the toolbox for ensuring that we have growth in the system, because it plays a role in the economy. It's not like a household budget, which often people like to talk about. It can ignite industries, it can stimulate demand in the economy. And so we really need to get back to basics and talk about what is the purpose of this budget. Is it about addressing inequality, poverty, and unemployment? And at the moment, under fiscal consolidation and going for regressive tax options like VAT, that doesn't seem to be the purpose of this particular policy framework at the moment.
So, Prof. Roux, and I'm going to talk to this, and then perhaps, Thokozile, I'll come back to you to just get a conversation on this. The Finance Minister speaking very much to the social relief grant, the SRD grant, and saying that this has caused a lot of strain on the fiscal. It was meant to be a temporary measure, and it's not going anywhere. He needs to fund this. And in fact, many people calling for this to be a basic income grant. But this is sitting from 350, it's gone up to 370, and he's saying it's adding a lot of strain onto him. And he needs to find the money somewhere. And he thought somewhere was by increasing VAT. Talk to me about the SRD. I mean, this is perhaps some money that people cannot live without. It's become an essential in people's lives.
Well, that's exactly the point. As you said, it was meant to be a 1-year kind of relief, COVID-related relief, but it's become firmly entrenched, I think, in people's budgeting. To take that away now would be disastrous, would really, I think, be a disaster for millions and millions of distressed households. But we must also talk about, in the same vein, the civil service wage bill. You know, at around about 15% of GDP, its proportion was the highest in the world. And I think if you look at the original budget speech, the not read budget speech, I think in some ways, if you read the paragraph there, there's almost a bit of tone deafness. The wording reads more or less as follows. We have decided to raise the VAT rate by 2 percentage points to enable us to finance civil servant wage increases. It's kind of telling poor people, look here, poor people, you're going to pay more tax so we can pay civil servants higher wages. I mean, I think the tactfulness there was a glaring lack of tactfulness in the way it was worded.
Yeah.
But the point remains that the 5.5% wage increase has been promised. He can't renege on that one either. Yeah. So it's back to the question of, can you cut back? And by the way, there's one more thing we haven't spoken about, and that is the Commissioner of SARS has said on more than one occasion that he believes that by having the right resources, he can generate another X 100 billion rand worth of tax revenue without actually raising taxes. Yeah. He's the one who's been saying repeatedly, don't raise VAT rates, give me more power to raise the revenue I should be raising. Yeah. The solution might lie there.
Exactly, and then remember, we all remember the open mic session, and we could hear the little bit of friction and the things being spoken about behind the scenes. So between the Finance Minister and the SARS Commissioner, so yeah, we'll have to see what happens there. But you're quite right. He's been absolutely against it. And for him, that should be off the table, and increasing taxes as well. There's so much more we need to speak about, and we can't. But I'm going to leave this one and the final one with you, Thokozile. So many people speaking about bloated cabinet. So many people speaking about wasted money on the fat cats that unfortunately are taking away from the poorest of the poor that need it, and the development and job creation in this country. Your views, if you could very quickly wrap it up on that note.
So I think it's absolutely critical that we think about the efficiency of the spending, and so in terms of making sure that we are spending much needed resources appropriately. But we mustn't get confused between millions and billions. So what we're looking for is 60 billion. And so tinkering around the cabinet, yes, it looks nice. It might give us, 300 million or 700 million, but it's not going to solve the bigger question of the 60 billion rand that we need. And it's important to note that this SRD, just to add, the SRD grant was funded in the previous budget. And so this argument that there was no money for the SRD grant is actually not correct. They put it under the contingency reserve. So they do have money for the SRD grant. something else was going on, and I think the Prof has pointed out, in terms of trying to finance other gaps, particularly the state-owned enterprises, which are quite costly. So we also need to read between the lines and make sure that our budget actually speaks to what is really going on in the economy and what is really needed. And we need civil servants, and we need a public wage bill that makes sure that we have schools, hospitals, clinics are run by people that are well-resourced, well looked after. So we shouldn't go for the public wage bill just as a blanket. We need to be nuanced about who we're talking about. And definitely the fat caps, yeah, we can definitely trim them, but we need to protect our public service because our need in this country is enormous. We have children that are stunted, children that are going hungry. And so this budget needs to work for everyone. And at the moment, it's working for the very, very wealthy.
We leave it there. Pleasure speaking to both of you. I just wish we had more time. Professor Andre Roux, who is an economist at Stellenbosch Business School, and Thokozile Madonko, who is a researcher at the Southern Centre for Inequality Studies at Wits University, talking National Budget 2025 Take 2. That's going to be delivered by the Finance Minister, Inequality Studies, in Parliament tomorrow.